Welcome to Buckets, coming to you from the Tommy John Home Studios. My name's Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network. This is your pregame best bets for NBA Finals Game 6 between the Pacers and the Thunder. The Thunder looking for their first championship in franchise history. No, I will not count the titles won in Seattle. The Pacers looking for their first NBA title. They do have several NBA titles. Joining me to talk about it, to break it all down, to give best bets, I've got three of the best bettors in the Action Network multiverse, the universe, the greater expanded universe. I got Kyle Murray at KMurr, KMURRDFS on Twitter and the Action Network app from Roto Grinders. I've got Gilles Gallant, GDog5000 on Twitter and the Action Network app, and Chris Raybon, your favorite bettor's favorite better, the best better in the universe. I don't know. I come up with like more superboles. I was gonna say superboles, hyperboles for Chris Raybon. Jill hosts the Touchdown Show, and Kyle has a number of articles out across all sports. You need to check out these guys out because they're awesome at what they do. We will break down Thunder Pacers Game 6. Obviously, the big talking point before we talk about where the market is at is the Tyrese Haliburton situation. As it stands, Tyrese Haliburton had a MRI done yesterday. Don't know it because they're not going to let that information get out about his calf string. He's going to try and go, but it's not a definite that he's going to play. We do not know. We'll keep an eye on during the show to see if there's news on that front. This is, to me, a very difficult thing to kind of encapsulate because I am totally in agreement with people like Brandon Anderson who are just like, come on, he couldn't move. It's very simple. He's hurt. It's not going to happen. And then I'm also aware of people that are like, yeah, we said that about Aaron Gordon, and then he was fine in Game 7, and then the Thunder waxed them anyway. Gilles Gallant, how are you approaching the information or lack thereof about Tyrese Haliburton and the betting markets?
Well, I mean, I think the key thing, just comparison to Aaron Gordon. I'm glad you brought up that example because Shams, the insider, was kind of reporting that he's very highly unlikely to play. You saw prop markets just get tanked across the board, and you're seeing them then reopen before tip-off, saying that he's going to give it a go, and then his points prop and rebounds prop were set way too low. He ends up clearing them easily in the first quarter. But now what you're starting to see is the trickle down effect of if Tyrese Haliburton is either limited or not going to play, because you're starting to see TJ McConnell's points market start to skyrocket. For example, three-pointer, we bet that, remember, in game 2, we got it around plus 300, plus 330. It's down to plus 160 now. So they're expecting probably TJ McConnell to get way more run than he normally does. Even somebody like Benedict Mathurin now returning home, you're starting to see his points prop like just climb, where it opened at 9.5, now around 11.5. So I personally think that Tyrese Haliburton is going to play 30 or more minutes. I don't know how effective he is going to be, but drugs are going to probably be in play where he's able to get back on the court. And I respect it because it is game 6 of the NBA Finals.
Yeah, I mean, look, people are like, boy, I hope this doesn't lead to something more serious. And it's, the reality is, it's just like, look, he can suffer a worse strain, he can exacerbate it, but the odds of him suffering a major injury that'll keep him out into next season are very, very, very low. Chris Raybon, what's your kind of feel for how you want to approach betting into this market and betting into this news with Tyrese Haliburton?
Yeah, so I think regardless of whether Halliburton plays or not, I think this series is kind of tilted toward the Thunder. You usually see this in with the superior team. It's not going to be from the jump, but there's usually a point in a series where there's no real adjustments to make. And I think OKC has shown that, they can win in a multitude of ways. They're not hitting their threes. They can win. SGA is a primary ball handler. They can win. Two-man game with J-Dub, they can win. J-Dub is the primary ball handler. They can win. For Indiana, I just think there's too many things that they're missing. If you look at, besides Halliburton, Aaron Nesmith has not been an elite wing defender, and he's fouling out of every game. So he's not giving Carlisle just that flexibility in crunch time. No one's stopping J-Dub. I mean, Siakam and Nesmith are supposed to be good defenders in the front court, too. It's not just, Siakam scoring. We really haven't seen anyone slow down J-Dub. So it's just, I just think there's too many issues. McConnell has a cap on his minutes anyway. Like he's got tired last game. That's why he didn't play more. So I just think there's a lot to overcome for Indiana, Haliburton or not. And let's not forget, even when he's completely healthy, he has a tendency to disappear from games for stretches. So I think that this news, I'm not going to let it affect too much because I think that at this point in the series, OKC has the edge.
I like it. Chris is like, Tyrese Haliburton, Tyrese the singer, don't matter. Thunder and Celtics. That's Raybon's word.
Tyrese Gibson, nah. I think
Gibson.
I'd still take Tyrese Haliburton over Tyrese Gibson.
Kyle Murray,
Barely, though.
when you're trying to do projections, Kyle, have you kind of approached trying to manage this with Tyrese Haliburton's uncertainty here?
Yeah, I think it's difficult because I think in the playoffs it's always harder to judge where these players are actually at injury wise. You guys allude to the Aaron Gordon situation last series, and obviously that was a spot where we had him projected to be limited pretty significantly, just based on all the reports out there. I think the key difference between the Aaron Gordon situation and the Halliburton situation is Gordon got hurt at the end of that game. We didn't get to see how he fared on the floor following that injury. We got to see Halliburton really struggle throughout the course of the majority of the second half last game and even deeper into that game. So I think for projection wise, I'm projecting him to play around 30, 31 minutes here with obviously, significant caps on his usage, his assist rate, just his overall involvement in the game. So that's kind of where I'm at projection wise. And I think that leads me to, having some interest in other players on the Pacers, especially some of these role players. But from an under perspective for some of these Haliburton unders, it does seem like the market is still fairly, lukewarm on him, I suppose. Obviously, his points prop is down to 13.5. It's been sitting at 16.5 or 17.5 in most games prior to tip off. But there are still some spots where you can find some nice numbers on some of his unders. So I do think from a projection standpoint, I am projecting him to be pretty significantly limited. But, in the back of my head, I think there's, several paths to him being limited, not only minutes wise, but efficiency wise and volume wise, but also just him not being able to go at a full the full minutes sort of portion that he's been playing throughout the course of this series. So yeah, he'll definitely be limited in my projection tonight.
The Occam's razor here is just like Hallie can't play, the Thunder, the Pacers are outmatched, this is done. Like that's Occam's razor. Like that's like the most simplest scenario here. I'm just scarred from the NBA being like, so of course, the Pacers are going to fight to win this. I do want to comment on this. Taylor Papura in our comments says that calf strains tend to lead to Achilles injuries. There's a difference in where the calf, though. That's the problem. So there's like, it's called the perineal on the side. If that was what was inflamed with KD, and that was what was that the lack of strength in that is why he tore his Achilles. If the strain is actually in the calf, it doesn't necessarily increase the odds of an Achilles tear. Now, I'm not going to rule that out that he can suffer one tonight because I'm not a doctor, but I just want to say that based off of the conversations I've had with folks in the league, that's my understanding of things. So interesting stuff in the market. If you caught our best bets episode the other day, you were, especially if you were live, it was a roller coaster because we started and it was one number, and then Sham said he had a strain, and then it closes another number, and then it went back the other way. Like that thing bounced like 3 points in each direction in the course of the 45 minutes we did the episode. I'm kind of curious because this line was 6.5 yesterday, and we're at 6, and a 5.5 is on the board in the market. And we are tracking sharp action on the Pacers. 59% of the tickets, 57% of the money, and sharp action on the Indiana Pacers. There's a plus 5.5. Now it's minus 102. The standard is 6 across the market. But I do find that kind of interesting that just there's been some movement today on Indiana, whether that's Haliburton related or not Haliburton related. I think that's kind of interesting. Chris, you said the other day that you don't really, you don't track, you don't pay as much attention to these kind of markets. How come?
Well, a couple of reasons specifically for the postseason. Number one is I think books are, they have to take into account now their liabilities on, the Thunder and the Pacers. And so they're going to kind of shade lines that way. But also, it just seems to me that the books are kind of opening the line at a number where essentially they're dictating which side big bettors, sharps are going to have to take. Like I don't think there's been a game yet. I could be wrong, but I feel like every time, Matt, you've kind of laid out which side the Sharps are on in this series and probably even going back to the conference finals, I don't really remember one being right yet. but especially in this series, it just seems to me that the sharp, like maybe with the totals, they've been a little better, but I found no real edge tracking sharps. And that for everyone out there that wants to tail, like it's really tough because a lot of the sharp action comes in right when the lines first open, and then the books kind of adjust the lines. But regardless, it's just you're still tailing, right? Like the sharp still got a different line than you did. So, if you're tracking sharp action and the Pacers, now they're going down to 6, 5.5, that means sharps probably took them at that, at least that 6.5 number, which is more than 2 possessions.
Right.
And now you're not getting that. So I wouldn't really pay too much attention to it. I've tracked it and found no edge. I just kind of ignore it and just kind of go with what the eye test and my numbers are telling me.
Yeah, I think that's fair. We talked a little bit about this I think it was before game 4. It was me and Fiddle and Fonseca, and we were talking about how like one of the problems is that, if you're beating the market, then great. You've got CLV, and over a long enough period of time with enough bets, that's a good approach that's good process. But if you're just like, oh, it moved this way, so I'll bet that direction. Well, you're not betting at the number that moved it that way. You're literally betting it after it's already been adjusted. So I think it's a totally fair point. I do appreciate Chris Raybon murdering my attempt to sell our Action Pro tools, though. I appreciate Raybon throwing me in front of a bus there. Okay. Total, by the way, just in case you are concerned with the market, this is down to 222.5. I think this is an overreaction on Haliburton, especially because the defense, I made a point about this in our Action Network write-up. The defense for the Pacers is actually 4 points worse with Haliburton off the court. Now the offense is obviously worse, but I do think that's got me on Thunder team total over tonight. To me, even if the Pacers are able to win this, it's going to have to be like everybody knocks down shots. What an awesome performance! Everybody came out and just knocked down all the threes, and they pushed it to a game 7. I think getting stops is actually harder when you don't have Haliburton to set the offense, because you're probably going to be going back into a set defense more often for Indiana. So I'm of the opinion that team total over for OKC is good value with how much this line has moved. I want to tell you about Underdog. Underdog is one of the best places to make picks during playoff basketball. While they score buckets, you could score cash. Underdog is one of the leading sports apps, and you can play right now in your state. Their app has over 100,000 5-star reviews, millions of players. To play, all you have to do is download the app and choose whether a player will go higher or lower on one of their stats. You can choose from things like points, assists, and so much more. Once your picks feel good, you can play with as little as $1, and if you get everything right, you can win up to 1,000 times your money. Download the Underdog app and sign up with promo code BUCKETS100 to unlock a special promo offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you make your first deposit. That's promo code BUCKETS100. Must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in the state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT-STEP to 53342. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Let's do best bets for game 6 of the NBA Finals. Maybe our last best bets of the season. It's been such a ride. I'm going to miss it. I'm also very glad if it's over. I need to sleep. All right, let's go. Chris Raybon, what do you like tonight?
Not sleep. Obi Toppin, I'm going with him under 1.5 3-pointers. Chet Holmgren under 1.5 assists, and good old trusty J-Dub on the road over 2.5 turnovers.
All right. Kyle Murray, what do you like?
Yeah, I got 3 props considering I do think this might be the last episode, but it's been fun. I know I joined late, but I've had a blast. But I got 3 plays. Haliburton under 1.5 threes. That's at plus 145. Hartenstein over 6.5 rebounds. And Kason Wallace under 5.5 points.
All right, Gilles Gallant, tell me your bets.
Yeah, I'm just going to play the hits. Tyrese Haliburton over 2.5 turnovers, and Kason Wallace under a half 3-pointer. Grab that at plus 130.
Okay, Gilles, let's start with you. Talk to me about Kason Wallace and why you want I love these under 3-point bets from you. I love them. They're just phenomenal. Tell me why you like this one.
Well, because Raybon took it last game. That's pretty much it. No,
Actually,
the reason was because Raybon did take the over in the last game, and he was all over it, and it cashed. He was 3 for 4 from 3-point in that game, but 3 for 11 from the series. I mean, all of his makes came in game 5. Statistically, he's just been awful in the final shooting. Really starting to see his role decline in this offense as well. 31% from 3-point, 2.8 attempts per game. That tends to go down on the road as well. Like also just wanted to talk about the minutes here. Like I think he's going to be playing less than 20 minutes here because he's only played 35 minutes just over the last 2 games, like where we're seeing him in a starting role at 33 minutes in game 1. Also, he's 5-1 to the under on his 3-point prop in playoff games this year when he's played less than 20 minutes. So I think he's going to play less than 20 minutes. And also, just from an odd standpoint, the under was minus 115 last game. So at plus 130, I just like the value here at plus money. So I think Casey Wallace is going to go under on his 3-point prop in game 6.
Okay, Kyle, you've got the under on his points here, so you're in line with him on that one. How do you want to kind of add on to that, and why'd you choose points instead of a 3-point prop?
Yeah, honestly, all the points that Joe made kind of line up here as well. For me, kind of counting on him to have efficiency in order to go over this number, and he just hasn't been an efficient scorer. The minutes point that Joe made also lines up here. I am projected for 19 points, which even I think has a couple of minutes, room for the even under that. So I wouldn't be surprised if he plays 17 or 18 minutes here. Wallace averaging just 4.75 attempts per game over the last 4 games, leaving out that game 1 outlier where he played 33 minutes. Obviously, that's a massive outlier here. So it's going to take a high efficiency game for him to go over on this number. So again, I think for me, finding this number at minus 115 is sort of why I was able to take the points compared to that plus money number on the 3-point number. But like both the props here, but my model likes the under 5.5 points quite a bit here for Wallace.
Okay. Chris Raybon, let's go to you. Let's take another under on 3-pointers. Let's talk about Obi Toppin under 1.5 3-pointers made minus 125.
Yeah, so over the last 2 games, Obi Toppin is a minus 31. So he could see his minutes held in check, even if Haliburton misses. He was a game worst, a minus 15 in game 4, a game worst, minus 16 in game 5. And then he went from 29 minutes, in game 4 to just 22 last game. And that was despite committing 0 fouls. The lineups just weren't working with him in there for whatever reason. And he's also a guy who shoots less than 2% better from 3 at home compared to on the road. So usually I'm kind of going with the home road splits with these things, but I think this one's overvalued because he had that spike in minutes in game 4. But he's come back down to earth. For this series, he's been under in 3 of the 5 games. But if you zoom out and look at a larger sample, which I think you have to do with 3-point shots, like I think you always want, the biggest relevant sample possible. And so if you look at the postseason at large, he's been under 1.5 in 17 of his 21 postseason games. That's 81%. And if you look at the regular and postseasons combined, he's played 100 games. So that gives us a little better of a sample size. He's been under 1.5 threes 68% of the time. So I like my chances here where this is not even too juiced up. I would play this till about anything under minus 200. I would play this. I think he's a good bet to see fewer minutes and not hit a 3 with this Thunder D.
Yeah, Toppin's always been a guy that I'm like, he can hit some threes in a big playoff series, and he's done it. But like doing it all throughout I agree with you. I think the market's kind of inflated. That 17 of 21 is really good there on the number. Breaking news. Tyrese Haliburton's officially in. Quote, strength tested at 5 p.m. and did very well, according to Carlisle. No minutes restriction. So you're going to love our parlay coming up. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be absolutely terrific. All right. Let's go back to Kyle. And let's talk Isaiah Hartenstein because I love this bet here on Isaiah Hartenstein over 6.5 rebounds minus 105, Kyle.
Yeah, I know I've been under on his points and assists prop a couple times in this series, but I like the over on his rebounds. Obviously, this is a good rebounding matchup. We've talked about it a couple times in different games throughout this series, and he's been a key part of this Thunder offense and defense, really, on both sides. So I like this number over 6.5, projecting for around 8.5 rebounds in this game for me in about 21 minutes. I do think he also has upside to play a couple more minutes here. I wouldn't go crazy in terms of a minute projection because even when re-entering the starting lineup, he hasn't played any more than 22 minutes in a game. But 16 rebound chances in game 5, averaging 11.6 rebound chances per game in this series, and that number improves to 13 rebound chances in those 3 games where he played at least 20 minutes. So the chances and the opportunities have been there for Hartenstein. I think that his role and his play so far has sort of shored up these minutes for him, and obviously re-entering the starting lineup helps that as well. So my model likes this over 6.5 rebounds at -105.
No movement yet on the spreader total based off of Halliburton's advance here. I'm probably going to play the points and assists over for Hartenstein again. I like that angle. He is a better passer than he is given credit for, and I think also I'm stuck on this thing of taking bigs as passers. I'm in a trap of my own devising with that, so I think I'm going to take the over on rebounds and assists. But he has been really good on these. On the rebounds as well. That 8.3 projection sounds pretty right for this game. I like that. Let's talk some turnovers. Gilles Gallant, let's go to you. Tyrese Haliburton, over 2.5 turnovers, -110.
For sure. And I've just been looking at some different sports books just to see how the market is reacting to that news. And the over money is coming in hard on almost every Tyrese Haliburton prop. Like everything is being skewed now over. So we'll talk about that a little bit more. But let's just talk about the turnovers here to start, which now I like even better now, knowing that there likely isn't going to be a minutes restriction. So over 2.5 turnovers. I just don't see a reason not to keep betting this one, especially given that we know now that he's going to play, and apparently there's no minute restriction because he's gone over this in all 5 NBA Finals games. And one thing that I have always liked this is because there is a little bit of a sweat factor to this because it continues to be a little bit of a slow burn, and then it just comes in waves where Haliburton, for example, had 1 turnover at halftime in Game 5, third quarter, bang, bang, 2 quick turnovers where it's like, okay, I don't really have to see what else is going to happen here for that prop. Game 4, it was a little bit more of the same. No turnovers at the end of the first quarter. Then he has 3 turnovers by halftime. So you see the physicality from this OKC Thunder defense on the ball screens, especially with Lou Dort. They're really tripping him up. And I mean, the calf injury, I think that's just going to make him a little more pass happy as well, where maybe we could get a little bit more turnover potential, especially given that I think now, if we're not seeing a minute restriction, we're probably going to see 35 plus minutes. So, yeah, I love this prop here. Tyrese Haliburton, over 2.5 turnovers. I'm still seeing it around -120 at some spots.
All right. Let's go back to Chris Raybon, who likes Jalen Williams, over 2.5 turnovers, plus 140 here, Chris. Good number.
Yeah, J-Dub's been on fire. I mean, he's been over these last 3 games, especially like probably the deciding factor for the Thunder with his offensive play. He's just been aggressive, but that he's going to continue that aggression. I mean, he can't stop now, but that sets up well for his turnovers. And if you look at the larger sample, which turnovers kind of a little bit more consistent than people might think, but you still want to get a larger sample size. On the regular and postseason combined, he's gone over 2.5 on the road in exactly 50% of his games. And remember, we're getting plus 140. So anything, plus money, we're cooking here. In the postseason, since round 2, he's been over 2.5 turnovers in 5 of his last 7 playoff road games. In this series, in Indiana, 4 turnovers in both games. And again, I expect him to continue to be aggressive, but the Pacers have shown that defensively, they are better when they are at home. Matt, you mentioned it earlier that, the Pacers are also better defensively with Haliburton on the floor than off. So I do think that this sets up well for another one of these high turnover games for J-Dub, and you get some nice plus money odds. I think those are really in our favor tonight.
Yeah, so a lot of the things that he's done just if we get into the X's and O's stuff, a lot of what he's done in order to be effective is he's just driving extremely hard. And if you're going to do that, you're going faster, and that increases your turnover rate. Think like Russell Westbrook, right? Like if you're going so fast and you're in the air and they do make the rotation, sometimes you don't have the ability to make that conversion rate. So the over 2.5 turnovers, that's a really smart play from Chris.
And I do want to add one thing to this is the rotations have also kind of changed a bit. So J-Dub is actually getting his shot to like run the offense solo with no SGA on the floor a little bit earlier in games now, which could help if there's a blowout either way. It used to be J-Dub would get the first 6 minutes of the second and the fourth quarters, first 4 to 6, by himself with no SGA. But now Daynault was pulling SGA in the first and third quarters in order to have him fresh, for if he needs to play the entire, second and fourth. So that means J-Dub's getting, he'll get his chances to commit these turnovers, in a little earlier, and that could loom large with I think a blowout potential either way, Indiana or OKC. So that's another thing to keep in mind.
Another 5.5 has popped on the board on the side. All right, let's go to Kyle. Let's talk about Tyrese Haliburton, man. Do you still like this play under 1.5 threes plus 145?
Yeah, I mean, for me, like it'd be difficult to change my stance coming into this just because of that news. Like I mentioned at the top, like it's really hard to take even what Coach Carlisle is saying for its word and its weight, just because of the fact that I think there's so many different angles that he can be playing and what he's saying out there. And I think obviously Halliburton was going to do everything he could to play in this game. So for me, not much has really changed. I guess I will see how it comes through in the markets, but for me, I feel like early on when this news first broke, it sort of felt like the markets were being set in a spot to where they could kind of pick on the casual bettors who maybe might not be aware of what was happening with the injury. And I think overs would probably be something that would catch a lot of people's eyes. So we'll see how much it moves to the over. But for me, this popped significantly in my model because of the plus 145 number. I'm still seeing it's at plus 140. I would bet this all the way at plus 120. But for Halliburton, I just think that it's going to come down to volume and efficiency, and I think you can count on, even if he's going to be out there for, maybe even a full complement of minutes, I'm still projecting for fewer volume and less efficiency as well. So for me, I still like this number here. When you look at over the last 2 games, he's 1 from 11 from 3 in those games. But the big thing is, last game we saw him take just 4 threes. That was the fewest he's taken in a game so far in the NBA Finals. No fewer than 7 in the 3 previous games. So for me, that sort of tells. Obviously, betting on an injury angle is always unique, but when it comes through in the numbers as well, where you see that volume drop, I think that's sort of indicative of how he's feeling. So I'm totally fine with still taking this number under 1.5 threes, plus 145. I guess I would say I feel a little bit worse about it now that there's no minutes restriction. But again, I don't think Carlisle would have come out and say, yeah, he's going to be playing hobbled and he's going to be weak, right? So I don't think that's something he would say in a pregame interview. So I'm not taking too much weight in that quote, but overall, still like this number at plus 145 under 1.5 threes.
Chris, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think what's going to happen with Haliburton is he's going to start the game, and I actually think it might come down less to Haliburton's health per se, and more so to how OKC wants to test his health. Because I think the last game, he didn't really do anything in the stat sheet because the injury happened kind of during the game. And so he was hesitant. He'll have a plan this time. I think his plan is going to he's going to either, initiate the offense and, lightning quick passes and try not to be much of an offensive factor, or he's going to take his threes early. And, does OKC give him that? They've been kind of suffocating him, Dort, ball denial, all that stuff. Does OKC pull back here and say, you know what? Let's make Haliburton beat us one-on-one. Let's make Haliburton hit threes, almost play him a little bit like McConnell or somebody like that. So that would be my only worry. But I think you could get an over in maybe a point, either threes or assists, probably not both. But it's probably going to depend on how OKC wants to defend him, because I think if he's playing, he's obviously going to have to be able to contribute something and is confident that he can contribute something. So that's either going to be kind of those set shot threes, or it's going to be, just passing it around and racking up and trying anyway to rack up the assists. So that's where I'm kind of at. And I'm also worried about him just getting pulled early, which would obviously help his three. So overall, I would lean toward unders across the board for him, but I do think he has a chance to go over at least one of points, assists, threes, because he's got to have a plan, which I don't think he had when it happened, mid game in game 5.
Okay, Jill. Before we hit Chris's last prop, I'm just kind of curious as now that we got this news settling in, if you have any sort of changes. You had already kind of said like I don't really want to mess with the injury report, and this is why, right? Like Shams is like, oh, he's it's looking bad. It's so bad. Yeah, Halliburton will play no minutes restriction.
Well, I was looking at some of the periphery guys, just seeing like, okay, is Benedict Mathurin's points prop, is that too far beyond the pale now? And obviously somebody will bring up that it's his birthday. That's a very easy angle for the public and myself sometimes to get swayed into. But truthfully, the guy that I was looking at to see if Halliburton wasn't going to play was actually Nemhard, because if you remember last year in that Boston series when Halliburton went out, Nemhard went off and had like 20 plus points in both of those games. Now that we have Halliburton back, I really think he's just going to control the offense. But again, I don't know how aggressive he's going to be. And I like to just also piggyback on that point that Raybon brought up about Halliburton, that it might not necessarily be a health reason why he gets pulled. He might just play like shit and be like, all right, right now McConnell and Nemhard are giving us the best chance to win. And that's what we got to do because we got to win this game. So, yeah, like I think with Halliburton, it's going to be very tricky to want to take overs on this. Even the turnovers one is still a little dicey because of that factor that if he plays like shit or gets hurt, he could get pulled.
Yeah, that's the thing is if he tweaks it, he could be absolutely out, which maybe the parlay will not be completely dead. Let's talk before you give that. Chris Raybon, talk to me about Chet Holmgren under 1.5 assists.
Yeah, well, I mean, you mentioned you like Hartenstein as a passer in this one, and I think that's the one thing Hartenstein has been giving him that Chet really hasn't in this series, because Chet has stepped his game up. I was really impressed with him, especially I think it was game 4. I thought he really showed some things, aggressiveness and whatnot. But if you look at passing wise, it's really just become the SGA J-Dub show with Caruso initiating the offense. And that's resulted in, when Chet is getting the ball, he's usually shooting it. He's not really in position to get assists for whatever reason in this series. 1 or fewer potential assists in 4 of the 5 games. So forget actual assists. He's like, you can't clear 1.5 assists if you only get 1 potential assist. So he's averaging 1 potential assist per game in the series. He's had 1 or fewer in 4 of the 5 games. And we know that Indiana at home has been better defensively. They've been able to close out on shooters better, and just overall better rotations. 19 assists per game allowed for the Pacers at home this playoffs compared to 21.6 on the road. So that's a 2.6 per game assist decrease. And for a guy like Chet, who, every little decimal tenth of an assist counts when you're projecting, because you're talking about the difference between 1 and 2 assists. I like him to go under this number for the 5th time in the series.
I love that one. I'll tell you on that. Sorry about that. All right. We've got parlay to wrap up before we do a little bit of open run. Let's do our parlay, which we did before the show. This was not built off of the presumption that Halliburton was not going to play, although if we played it and we hadn't gotten word and he hadn't played, it would have been voided. But we are going across the board on unders on Halliburton. Under 13.5 points, under 6.5 assists, under 1.5 threes made, under 4.5 rebounds, under 1.5 stocks. And if you put those together, you can get a plus 900 in the market. The idea here, I think, even after him being ruled in, is and with no minutes restriction, is still probably has value because there isn't like a 9-to-1 price. Your outcome here is either he is ineffective or he re-injures himself and comes in and then can't finish the game, and then all these unders hit. The reality is that calf strain is very difficult. It's very hard to push off of. It's very hard to do things like run and jump, and those things all impact your ability to do things on the basketball court. So with that in mind, we'll take plus 900 on across the board on the unders on Tyrese Haliburton. Gilles, you still with me on this even after we
Yeah,
get the
but
news?
I was just checking to see if the
The
odds
numbers are
have
better.
gone up since
Yeah,
and now thankfully, if you're looking to tail that, it's up to 10 to 1 now. So I like it even more.
there you go. Still a bit of open run, and the biggest one, instead of singling out anybody's question in particular, is got a lot of folks that are on Benedict Mathurin. It is his birthday, by the way. Happy birthday, Benedict Mathurin. Hope you have a great game on a birthday. But outside of the birthday cap, I do want to know, Kyle, if you can look up what you've got him projected for. Raybon, if Haliburton's unable to create on his own, does Benedict Mathurin have maybe the best upside as a scorer in this situation?
Yeah, I think he does. Because we know that Obi Toppin has been struggling, and the lineups with him have been struggling. So Mathurin is that other wing that would get minutes. And yeah, if Halliburton's struggling to create, because the thing about the thing that we haven't really discussed is TJ McConnell. And a lot of people are saying you got to play TJ McConnell more. But this is just another flaw with this Indiana team, is that TJ McConnell and Halliburton, it's really tough to play them at the same time, because that's just like defensively going against like SGA and J-Dub. Like that's just, you can't have two guys that are, I would say probably minuses overall defensively. I know Halliburton, they've been better numbers wise with Halliburton on and off, but I still think those guys can be targeted. And so you kind of have a cap on what McConnell can do, creation wise, because I actually think he fits this series, driving to the paint and whatnot. So Mathurin is that other guy that can get to the free throw line. I know Joe's talked about it a ton in shows past. He can get to the free throw line. He's got to make the free throws, but he can get to the line. He's been the lineups with him in have been more successful than Obi Toppin, and like the McConnell Halliburton combination. You're not really going to see too much of that, I don't think. So all signs kind of point to Mathurin being that guy if they're starved for some offense here, which they've been going against one of the greatest defensive teams of all time.
I've been worried about betting Pacers directionally since the line opened, since game 5. And Chris Raybon being on this side of things makes me feel a lot better. I just thank you, Chris, for putting my heart at ease. Kyle, what do you have this have Benedict Mathurin projected at?
Yeah, I do like Mathurin. I got his 10.5 over earlier this morning. So I have him projected for 11.9 points. The volume's been pretty good for him. 11 shots last game, 4 free throws, but averaging about 7.5 field goals and 4.5 free throws per game. And I think obviously if you want to bet on the angle of Halliburton being limited, it's worth noting that the projection for pretty much all these Pacers, especially the guys related to any of Halliburton's projection, is very volatile. But I do have him projected for the over here about 11.9 points.
Okay. All right, that's gonna do it for buckets. Our last, no, maybe our last pregame buckets of the season. So sorry, Chris. We will be back after the game. We'll break it down, whether it's the end of the NBA season and the Thunder winning a first championship, or we'll look ahead to game 7 and how to hedge 700,000 different positions that we've given out on the show. Appreciate you guys being with us. Make sure to follow Chris Raybon at Chris Raybon on Twitter and in the Action Network app. Gilles Gallant is at GDog5000. Kyle Murray is at KMurDFS. I appreciate you guys being with us. Enjoy the game. We'll talk to you guys again next time. Thanks again for Gould, our producer. Till after the game, let's get buckets.